All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jim Lorigan talking to you. I'm going to go over some of the muscles in our upper leg that attach to the pelvis. I remember that was going to be our next studio lecture was going to be on the pelvis and how the pelvis functions as a platform for a number of muscles. And so let's get started. Before we get too far into it, I think it'd be a good idea to take a review of the femur again. And I've got a bunch of notes over here to the side, so if you hear rustling, it's because I'm looking at some of my notes. In fact, it's not a bad idea if you go through that PDF I gave you on the muscles of the, the muscles, all of them actually. And it was kind of interesting. I sat here yesterday and just started Googling the names of the muscles, and you'll get real brief descriptions about what they do, how they function, where they're located. In fact, I think I put in function and location of the muscle. So, for instance, crossalis, function, location, got a lot of good information. So a lot of universities and so on. But it's fascinating, and it's information that'll inform your drawings sometime in the future, if we ever get back to a live model again. In the meantime, though, it's a good opportunity to study this stuff. So let's take a look at the femur. I remember we talked about we're looking at the anterior aspect. We're looking at the front of the figure here, and the femur here, and of course this is the ball and socket joint that fits into the pelvis. We've got the neck of the femur here, and then we get to the great trochanter. This is that portion of the bone that you can feel with your finger coming to the surface. What we also need to take note of is the lesser trochanter, this other little protuberance here, right, or tuberosity. Then we come down the bone here, and we get down to the condyles. We have the medial epicondyle and lateral epicondyle on this side, looking at the front. And then we go to the back, and we get the medial and lateral condyles at the bottom of our leg. So this is on the back side, and you can see there's a bit of a depression in here, and two protruding parts of the bone here. The difference between a condyle and an epicondyle is kind of fascinating. The epicondyle is in the front, and it becomes a platform for tendons and ligaments to attach. A condyle is where one bone comes into contact with or meets another bone. Also going to be a platform for tendons and ligaments things. So let's get started. I'm going to go from deep inside and work our way out, and you can see my notes here. Going to look at the obturator externus, right? So this is a muscle that's going to come across from the back side of this neck here and come around and occupy this area here from the pubic ridge here and all the way across the ischium. Now, we look at the pelvis, we've got the iliac here, right? And the ischium down here, or the pubic arch here, this is cartilage, right? And then here we have the coccyx, right? And our sacrum, right? So we can see, we went over this in class, but very few joints in the pelvis, a pretty large bone here, and we've got the ischium that hangs down here. It's got that like a stirrup in it. So this is the obturator externus, and it goes, like I said, kind of behind the neck of the femur and attaches to the backside over here. And what it does is when the hip is flexed, it acts as an abductor, taking the leg away. So I guess if you pull on that, you can imagine what would happen to the femur if there was tension put on that. Okay, and that actually comes in and fills this whole area here. You can see from the illustrations, right? So then, jump to this other illustration here, and we're looking at pectineus. And the pectineus goes on top of and over this obturator, and it's going to occupy this area, and it's going to come down to the lesser trochanter here, up to the pubic ridge here, and it's going to occupy an area about to here. Let me flesh this out a little bit. By the way, you know, there's a ridge on the femur. We can't see it because these muscles are kind of ducking in behind it. I've drawn it in on the backside view, and it's the linea aspera, right? So there's a little ridge on the back side of the femur where those muscles are coming over and grabbing hold. That's, you know, so they're going to get a hold of that. You can also see the lesser trochanter from here. Little better view of it. So here we go. So we're back over looking at for the front, and so obturator extremis here, and then on top of it with the pectineus going across this way. What does it do? Well, the pectineus is an adductor. It's going to pull the leg inward, right? And it helps rotate the thigh, so medially. So it's going to rotate it inward, right? So that's that one there. The next one we get is the adductor brevis. So you get three, the brevis, right? The longus, and all the way down here at the bottom, the adductor magnus. And they're all going to come up and attach in this area here. So, well, let's go ahead and put those in. I don't know what color to grab here. So let's start with the brevis. We'll come across, it's going to come across here, and it's going to occupy this space in here and come down about to here. So adductor brevis coming in this way, and then adductor longus coming in from about here, and it's going to travel up to here. So these are adductors, and what they're going to do is they're going to pull the leg inward, right? Inward, medially. So it's going to come inward. Also help rotate the thigh. And then the adductor magnus is going to attach here, and it's got a bit of a belly in it here, that muscle. And that tendon is going to come all the way down to here and grab a hold of this condyle on our thigh, right? So let's go ahead and give that a little bit different color here. So we're gonna got that muscle coming in here. In fact, it's gonna come over here a little bit. Got to leave room for one more muscle that's going to go in there, and that's going to be oh, by the way, the adductor magnus. It's going along the back side too. So let's see if I can find that illustration. The back. Oh yeah, here we go. So you can see on the back side, when we get over to the other part of this, and you can see part of it here. There's in this illustration, you can see part of that muscle, adductor magnus. It's a big, powerful muscle. And on the back side, you can see it's going all the way up that linea aspera, right? It just goes all the way up that. Comes across from the ischium, right, to that linea aspera, all the way down our thigh. And you see it sort of splits off and makes that connection. Big, powerful muscle. It's deep, though. It's going to be underneath the biceps femoris and the semitendinosus in the backside. But it's helping, it's going to help pull our leg inward, right? So that comes down to here. Now there's one more muscle. We'll wait, and then we'll put that in. That'll be the gracialis, and it's going to come from here all the way down below the kneecap and attach to the tibia. down out of sight of your camera. Here, let's see. We'll bring that out. So I'll pull this up a little bit. So it's going to come from the groin, right? Very inner part of the groin, down past the knee joint. Now the patella, your kneecap would be in here. It's going to go past that to something called the goose foot tendon that attaches here on the tibia. So we'll stick that in towards the end. So this group of muscles, and I guess that's the way you might want to think of them, is responsible for pulling our leg inward, adduction, and just think of it as a group, the adductors. You can, come back and you can study this stuff, but and every time I go over this stuff, I learn something new. And what are we going to say here? Adducts, pulls the legs in, rotates the hip, and so on. So the adductor magnus, though, has two functions. It pulls the leg inward and rotates as well. So as it's coming up, but you can see it's quite a large muscle. We'll get over to the other side of it. Okay, so that pretty much takes care of that. Let me make sure I didn't miss. How much did I miss here? A lot, probably, but you get the idea. So these muscles will pull us inward. Now, I think that covers that. Now we'll get into the rectus femoris, the muscles that when you flex will kick your lower leg out, right? So if you want to push your foot forward or lift your foot forward, pull your knee up, you're going to be using this group of muscles here. So you can see here a little thumbnail sketch of what happens, right? And you can see this group of muscles, right? The quadriceps end up attaching to your pelvis up here. So let's put some of those muscles on here. So what are they? Quadriceps. So we have the rectus femoris right in front, right? And you can see we have a tendon that starts down on the tibia, down here on the tibia, right? Here's where the goose foot tendon comes in. We'll see that later. But so we got this big tendon here, goes across the patella, right? This tendon's attached to the patella here, right? And goes all the way up to our pelvis to this point, right? As we're looking at this, the iliac, we have the iliac crest. Well, the iliac crest, when it comes around, this is where you rest your hand on your hips, by the way. When that iliac crest comes around, we've got two spines, right? This little thing here, you can actually kind of feel a little indentation in your pelvis in this area here. So you have the superior iliac spine and then the inferior iliac spine here. Well, the quadriceps attach here, right? And come down the leg this way. Let's bring it on down. And to the patella, which is going to be here. So it's going to attach there. It's going to come down from here. And you can see it's kind of interesting, isn't it? The way the femur is tilted out this way, and yet this tendon comes up and goes past it. Now, the rectus femoris is going to look something like this. And it's got a belly in it, and it's going to go this way too. When you flex your leg, you can see this one, they'll pop out and leave some grooves around it, right? But underneath that is the vastus medialis. Let's see if I can find a different color here for that. Things are getting kind of dark. And it's going to occupy this area here and come up this way. Now, underneath this, underneath the rectus femoris, the vastus medialis is coming up the femur, and it's attaching to the femur along here, right? You don't see it. All we see from superficially is this bulge coming out, you know, when we relax your leg, actually, you'll see a little poof here, a little bulge there. On the other side is the vastus intermedialis right here. And that muscle, let's see where it's go. Vastus, from the top of the femur to the tendon of the patella. So this goes all the way up here too. So it's going up the femur here. It's just, we're only going to see a little bit of it because it's underneath, right? The vastus lateralis, which tucks in here, right? So the vastus lateralis is going to tuck in here and come on down the side of her leg this way and get in just behind the vastus intermedialis, right? And you see where it's attaching. It's attaching to the femur and coming down the edge of the femur this way. So we're starting to flesh things out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and darken this tendon as it comes down to the patella that we don't have in our drawing, right? This be right here. So we're starting to, maybe we should flesh this guy out a little bit. There. A couple more hours in the gym. Take care of that. Right. So now what do we have? So we have the muscle, this group of muscles here. By the way, so this passes over, here's the patella, goes past the patella, and that tendon attaches here to our lower leg. That way, when you flex this group of muscles, your lower leg's going to kick out. Okay? So that's what's going on there. So here's our abductors. Our adductors here, we've got the one abductor tucked in, hiding behind the neck, the femur coming over and filling that ischium right on that side. So, the fact is, I think I need to drop my vastus intermedialis here. Of course, it's going behind the, going to go behind the vastus lateralis there. Okay, so there we go. So that group of muscles kicks your lower leg out, right? And lifts your leg this way. So this is my little doodle of how to do that. So okay, so let me set that aside. Let's see, what am I missing? Oh, it looks pretty good. All right, so let's see here. That brings us to the upper pelvis here, but you can see how that pelvis is an anchor for so much, right? All those adductors, right? And the rectus femoris. All of these muscles are attached to this tendon, right? They work on this tendon and the vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedialis are attached to the femur, while the rectus femoris goes from the patella to the pelvis here. Okay, so let's take a look at the pelvis up, and then we'll look at the back of the leg. Okay, so I'm going to drop this down a little bit so you can see. Now, I should have, let me stick this up here, this will work. I need a little more paper up here. Put the spine in. So the lumbar region of the spine will be here. There's, 5 lumbar vertebrae, and we get to the thoracic vertebrae, right? And your first rib would be somewhere in about, here, a little rib there. And I think this is thoracic number 12 or something. Then we get the vertebrae coming down and attaching to our sacrum, the lumbar region here. So I want to mention that because this is what we're actually dealing with here. We've got a couple muscles here, pretty fascinating. We can't see them, really. You don't see them. The psoas major and the iliacus here. And you can see what they're doing. They're going to come down, and I'll draw them in here. They're going to attach to the, well, we can't see it anymore. I lost it. The lesser trochanter, right? They're coming in from the lesser trochanter. The iliacus is underneath this, by the way. It's going to come up and I should have started with this one, and line the inside of the iliac here, right? It seeps over and goes up to that first rib. Okay, so it comes up this way, attaches to the iliac crest, and then the iliacus lines the inside of the pelvis, comes down through here and attaches to the lesser trochanter, right? All right, so coming out of that is the psoas, also lining the inside of the leg here, and it's going to come up, and it, by the way, it splits into two. It's kind of fascinating, and it's going to go all the way up to this vertebrae. There's a little, you know, attached to that vertebrae and along that rib. It's going to come down now, and it's a very powerful muscle. This is the muscle that you use when you're bending forward, right? If you're doing a sit-up, right? It's going to come into play for that, and it also well, you use it whether you're walking or dancing or hopping or skipping or whatever. This is the one, and it has a function where it is attached to that vertebrae there. It helps stabilize our torso, right? And when you're walking, by the way, I was going to say, go back to this idea. There's two parts of this, and part of it comes down and attaches here, which would, on this side, you would see it here, right? Attaches here, goes past over to the femur, to the lesser trochanter, right? And up to our lower rib. So in class, you know, I was harping on this idea that, you know, not harping, trying to reinforce this idea that it's hard to isolate parts of the body because it's all one continuous thing. So when you're thinking about the leg, it doesn't stop here at the pelvis. It actually goes through the pelvis all the way up to our rib cage via this the psoas and the iliacus, and they'll be used together, a term together though. Oh, let's see, to combine those two words. And by the way, the iliacus is a triangular shaped muscle that attaches here. Okay, now this one, the psoas, splits into two. You have one part that comes down here and attaches to this pubic bone, or here would be the pubic arch, right? Attaches here, and the other part goes through here. Now, some people don't have the muscle here. They just didn't get that part, right? And so what they'll have is a tendon that goes there. And apparently you'll never know whether you have it or not unless somebody does a, you know, autopsy on you, right? So not something you're going to find out. And apparently either the tendon or the muscle works, you know. So when you're walking, when you're sitting, you know, dancing, all those things, you know, think of the psoas and how it's attached to your femur. Like I said, you won't see it, but if you think about it, maybe when you're drawing, you'll continue that up into the torso or the trunk a little bit, right? So that about covers that part of it. There's a couple other muscles. I think we might as well put them in. Let's get those in. One would be the, like I said, the gracialis, and it's going to start down here. Now there's a way to remember STG, right? Sartorius, semitendinosus, and gracialis. Now, and that just means the order in which they line up on this goose foot tendon. So the sartorius would be the top one. It starts here. It's the longest muscle, right? And it comes down along here, around the corner, and attaches there. If you kick your foot out, or just turn your foot outward 90 degrees, this muscle will be straight. And it's for sweeping motions. So if you were, you know, sweeping your leg across, kicking a soccer ball, right, from outer to inner, you'll be using the sartorius, right? It comes down here. Now the gracialis goes from the inside here down to that same tendon. So let's go ahead and put that in there. So that's our gracialis. It's coming down here, and now we have pretty well attached the leg muscles to the pelvis. And you can see now this line goes from the lower leg all the way up into the pelvis. The rectus femoris, hit the patella, and then across the patella you get this other tendon that comes down and attaches to the lower leg, right? And I think that about does it. We're not very well fleshed out over here yet, are we? Well, we're going to see that when we get to the other side. So there's three here: the sartorius, the gracialis, but the semitendinosus. Now it's going to appear on the back of our leg, but it's going to come around and attach to this too. So we'll see that in a second. I'm going to move over to that side of the drawing. Let's bring that over here, and hopefully you can see it. I've got a jury rig here with a little camera over the drawing table, so that's so I might have to shuffle this around a little bit. Okay, so deep. We talked about this. This is the posterior view of the adductor magnus. So we're looking at the abductor and it's coming off the ischium here, and it's a big old muscle, right? And we can see where the tendon comes in and attaches to this condyle. So it's like that, and then of course it also is attaching all the way down here over to just below the lesser trochanter. Okay, and there's a big tendon coming out of there too, so I don't want to forget that. So you can look at your drawings, go into that that PDF on the legs, and you can get probably a better view. But it's fun to practice. And by the way, it's very helpful to draw this stuff out. So if you have some time and you want to really get a handle on where all these things are going, then just draw them out. Every time I do this kind of thing, I learn from it. Now in class I'd be doing this on the chalkboard, so this is kind of interesting. So working here in my studio, I hope I'm talking to you, but I have really no idea. Okay, so then the next thing that goes in here, so our biceps femoris, our hamstring muscles. So that's the group you can think about for the back of our leg. It's going to pull our leg up, lower leg up, as if you were flexing your bicep in your arm and you're pulling your lower arm up. Well, it sounds like the squirrels outside are having a bit of a argument. Okay, so the semimembranosus, little muscle here, and the semitendinosus. And where are they going? They're coming up to here. They're this part right here of the ischium, right? And they're going to come down here. But let's get that. This is what I'm looking at. This illustration here is a deeper layer of this one. Right, this is the one we're going to see. But in order to get this little muscle in here, it comes out in a little bit of a bulge, swings around, and attaches to a tendon that goes past the knee joint in the back, and it's going to attach to, right, the tibia. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. So it's coming down, attaching to the tibia here, right? So you can feel it. If you lift your leg up and lift your lower leg back up, you can feel that tendon. You get an idea of where it's going. Now remember, when we looked at the lower leg, we had the gastrocnemius, right, the calf muscles, going inside that and attaching to the condyles of the femur, right? So this is the part that goes on the outside of it. So this tendon here is coming up, and it's attached to the semimembranosus, right? And so let's go ahead and I just barely drew that in because we're going to lay the biceps femoris on top of that, and the semitendinosus. Okay, so the semitendinosus is going to come in and starts about here, right, on the ischium, right, that loop on the back of your bottom of your pelvis. And I'll go ahead and put a split in here. We see this muscle sort of come over to a tendon, kind of a long tendon. That's that tendon we can feel, right? And it goes around the front, remember? That's the semitendinosus, that STG. It's going to wrap around to the front of the leg and attach to that goose foot tendon. So we're going to see that coming around from the medial side, the inside of your leg, over. So, right, that's the STG part of that. So here we are, back over in this one, and I'm going to get the biceps femoris in. It starts here, flares out, goes across the femur, by the way. The femur should be tucking in there, yeah. And down the other side, past the knee, and attaches to the fibula. Right? Remember that guy? It's that little small bone on our lower leg. So that's our biceps femoris. And it's going to come down this way. All right. So that gets our legs attached to the pelvis. Now, I hope I have enough time here to do this before the camera quits on me. Right. And that's to look at the glutes. And I'm not going to draw those in. I'm just going to take a look at them here. So the gluteus minimus, right, lines on the outside of our pelvis would be this area here, right? And it's going to come down, go across, and attach to the trochanter, right? And it's going to fill up this area here. Now you see on our pelvis, this would be a little bit of an indentation in the pelvis, and that's where the gluteus minimus is going to, and it comes down to here, right? And then across and attaches to our femur, right, to the trochanter. So this area here would be filled up with that. So that's the gluteus minimus. You can see follows that groove, comes around the underneath the, this would be the anterior superior iliac spine right there, that little dip, and down to the front edge of our femur. And you can't, this would be the back side of the femur, so you're not going to, it's going to kind of tuck around the other side. So then the deep layer of that, so we're looking straight at the back here, gets a little complicated, right? So we have tendons coming across to the ischium this way, all right? And then this series of muscles going across to the femur. So the quadris femoris, the, I don't know if that's gemellus inferior. I'm not sure how to exactly pronounce that. Going from the ischium over to the trochanter. Piriformis coming across, and the gluteus medius. And the gluteus medius is coming all the way up to here. All right, everyone, let's see. I'm going to pick up where the camera shut off, and we'll continue on. So this shouldn't take long. I'm talking about the glutes here. So, I broke out some the images that are in the PDF that I sent you, and so we can get a quick look at this. Now, I think I was talking about the gluteus minimus earlier when everything changed on us. So, or everything changed here when the camera went off. So let's get back to it. So gluteus minimus, it lines the inside here of the pelvis. There, like I said, over here in our drawing, you can see the ridge where the gluteus minimus clings onto. Now, as the muscle comes down here, as it comes down to the femur, you can see it's actually going to the front side of the femur. So its role is abducting. You're your femur. So it's going to help pull the femur up and forward a little, right? So it's abducting. It is directly under the gluteus medius. In fact, it gets covered by the gluteus medius. And so this is the gluteus medius here, and here covers the gluteus minimus, and does the same thing. It abducts, but in this case, this muscle would contract, and it's going to pull your femur out, this, out to the side. These other muscles, as we come down here, the piriformis, gemellus superior, obturator internus, gemellus inferior, and quadratus femoris. Okay, you can see this one goes straight over to the femur, and it's going to help when that it's going to help rotate the femur. So if you were like want to spin your foot out or something, and you can see the same thing with all these shorter muscles, they're going to help abduct and rotate the femur. Okay, you can see they kind of go to different places here, and that's all buried by the gluteus maximus. Now this is it from the side, so you can see where the minimus sneaks out here underneath the gluteus medius, right? And then here's the gluteus maximus on top of it. And the gluteus maximus comes down to a point on your femur, I don't know, a few inches down, right? And inserts there, and that, when you flex your gluteus maximus, your leg will go backwards, right? So you can see how articulated that joint is. We have muscles to abduct our femur, adduct the femur, and then in this case, I don't know if that's abduction or adduction, but I guess it'd be abduction, it's swinging the leg outward, right? So it comes down our femur there. Now this is the view from directly from behind, right? So you can see gluteus maximus lining up along the sacrum here, up to the ridge of the iliac here, and of course in this view you can see the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus sort of hanging out there a little bit, right? So they come down to our femur. So that concludes the muscles attached to our pelvis that then connect our leg to the pelvis. And later we'll come back and we'll talk about the muscles of our trunk that are connected to the pelvis. So that'll be the next thing. So something to review, we think about these muscles in groups. So the muscles in the back of our legs, leg biceps, help pull our lower leg up, right? So in fact, if you wanted to bend your leg, right, you would be using the biceps femoris, right, that are connected here to the tibia and to the fibula in the back of our leg, right? So if we wanted to lift our leg that way, that's the muscle group that you're using, this group that's in the back of our leg, right? So, and then we just looked at the glutes, and they're there to abduct, adduct, and rotate our femur. So that brings up this other point I don't think I talked about. As we were looking at this group of muscles, right, the adductors that pull our leg inward, and some, very powerful muscles there. As the muscles get shorter, as they come up into the pelvis, the shorter muscles do more in terms of rotating the femur, rotating it inward or rotating it outward, right? So think about the shorter abductors. That's their principal role, is to help rotate that femur. If you think about all the intricate movements you can do with your leg, that's what's happening. And then so that's what's going on there. Now this group here, the quadriceps, their role, also powerful group of muscles, their role is to lift our leg, right? In fact, is the rectus femoris, is to lift our femur this way. So if we were going to put our femur in this position, so here's our glutes attaching right to our femur, and now that our legs in this position, the hamstrings can relax, but we're flexing these muscles that also, attach to our pelvis, right? The muscles that come around to here. So now if you wanted to swing your leg out, you could also do that. So just like in our hand, we have muscles that work antagonistically to each other. So this group would be what? The extensors, right? And this group would be flexors. So you can look at it that way. And as artists, think about them as in groups. You don't have to, and get some idea about where things attach and so on. So it's fascinating to do, and it will, like I said, it'll inform your drawing. Now remember the psoas, helping us sit up, right? Don't forget that one goes up the back of our spine to our lower rib. So which then connects all of this to that, right? So anyway, thank you. And I think the next little video lecture that I do will be of the muscles of the face. So if you want to get a jump on that and take a look at some of that in the PDFs that I sent you, it might be helpful. So thank you, and I think that'll conclude this little video.